On Wednesday, April 15th, 2020, I sat down with eager anticipation and talked with Dr. E. Michael Jones for the second time. Towards the end of our talk, I started pressing Dr. Jones on how to make Logos practical. He said,
and the idea of discovering the truth and then acting on it is called prudence. And prudence is a form of Logos. And so what we're saying here is that Logos is now more necessary than ever. That's why I wrote this book.
Later that day, I saw his channel posted a video, Covid-19, Uprising. This is by far the most viewed video on his channel recently. Let's take a look.
The answer to all of these questions is prudence, the ability to recognize the truth and to act on it. In this particular context, that means the ability to answer a series of specific questions like, who speaks for the state? Is it Donald Trump or Bill Gates? Who speaks for science? Is it Anthony Fauci, the mouth of Big Pharma, or a host of German professors who say the pandemic is over and draconian measures are no longer necessary? Who decides when the epidemic is over? The experts or officials elected by the people? How does the president, to give just one example of a head of state, decide between the claims of competing experts? The answer is Logos in the form of prudence.
The answer is simply Logos in the form of prudence. Fair enough. Later in our conversation, he says,
no, nothing is greater than Logos, because Logos is God, and nothing is greater than God. They are interchangeable terms here.
So, we need to exercise one of God's forms, prudence. Well, that seems difficult, as we are people and not God. Later in the Uprising video, he says,
everyone has Logos because, as Aquinas might have put it, everyone is a rational animal.
Now, how can anyone have God, and why would we have God inside of us? Because we are rational animals. This is deeply confusing, but there is a Catholic bias that now comes to the forefront. Seeing people as rational animals actually comes from Aristotle, not Aquinas. Ethos 1:7, quote, the primary function of the human being is activity of the soul in accord with and requiring reason, unquote. Before asserting this, Aristotle does talk about how humans are essentially animals with the added capacity of reason and/or political activity. This verse is the summary of that exercise in logic. This verse takes bravery to accept in our hearts. This means that when we are not acting based on reason, we are no longer human. More on that later. Anyway, let's look more at the Uprising clip.
Universal access to Logos is the basis of representative government. Imprudent decisions by public officials have unleashed crises because their vice blocks access to Logos, darkens their minds, and renders their decisions either ineffective or unnecessarily draconian because of the lack of prudence behind them.
We can now clearly see that not only do we need prudence, we also need to see that the problems in our society are stemming directly from the lack of prudence or imprudence of our leaders. I think many of us already know that. Coming back again to prudence, what do we actually do about it? In the final act of the Uprising video, Dr. Jones says,
Logos is the antidote to the cabal of CEOs and homosexuals who now rule us imprudently with an iron rod of their own making, because it takes political power out of the hands of the oligarchs and their experts and puts it back into the hands of the people where it belongs in a democracy.
Logos is the remedy. Fine. Does that mean God is the answer? or we need to be like God, or join a church, or be more rational? Let's hear what Dr. Jones said from our conversation earlier.
So if you're interested in a practical application of this, you need to become a Catholic. You need to get baptized, because the Logos incarnate did not leave everyone to their own devices. He created an institution that would help them in a practical way, and the name of that institution is the Catholic Church.
This is simply not possible for most of us. Take, for example, an Orthodox Christian. They've already been baptized and accept Christ as the Logos incarnate. Are they not eligible to be redeemed simply because they've chosen the wrong institution? According to Dr. Jones and his conception of Logos, yes. Regardless of that, we can all agree that it's better to be prudent than imprudent. Later in our conversation, Dr. Jones says,
so there can be a correspondence between your mind and God's mind, and when you have that correspondence, you have truth. And so you can be, so then once you have the truth, then you can act. So that's the connection. You need to make contact with Logos in order to understand the truth. Once you have the truth, you can be assured that you know reality, you know what's going on, and then you can be secure in taking some form of action.
So we can find truth and then act on it. That's Logos. Although that's a really tall order. How do we match our mind to God's mind? Most of us can't even properly understand our own crazy minds. Let's see what Aristotle says, and how we can use ethos instead of logos. Ethos 6:38, quote, "Prudence, this eye of the soul, requires virtue in order to reach its fully developed state. For inferences about actions have a principle, and this best good is apparent only to the good person. For vice perverts us and produces false views about the principles of actions. Evidently, then, we cannot be truly prudent without being good." Unquote. This is at least actionable. It ain't easy being good, but we can all see and agree that when we have formed our character well, that is, when we have ethos, we can then be prudent and also properly call out others who are imprudent. Here's one final clip from our conversation.
You have to perceive the being, the fundamental, the foundation of your belief in being is known as the truth. And then once you have that firm foundation beneath your feet, then you can start acting in a positive way.
On this, I wholeheartedly agree. However, the exact definition of truth will probably be different from person to person. Furthermore, when we do find an ultimate truth and take it to heart, we'll be very agitated when others go against our truth, hence religious warfare. This problem I'm calling hyperlogos. Ethos, on the other hand, is universal and secular. Everyone can agree that the excellent person is better than the mediocre person. The definition of the excellent person changes much less between cultures than the definition of ultimate truth. For example, my definition of God and truth is probably quite different from the Dalai Lama's. He follows a Buddhist discipline, I follow a Hindu Vedantic discipline. But if I meet His Holiness in person, I will drop to my knees very quickly and perhaps even weep tears of ecstasy in His presence. His top quality ethos, His character, His excellence is utterly obvious to millions of people, maybe even billions of people around the world. In conclusion, I'll say that I will always support those who seek truth and speak truth to power, such as Dr. E. Michael Jones. For those who are no longer complacent with watching media like this as entertainment and are ready and eager to actually live the truth, to integrate wisdom into your character, I have an excellent solution. Not the only one, but it is the best one I know of. One thing you can do immediately is read our 10-page free PDF on our website, which covers in outline how Ethos is relevant to everything we've been talking about. You can also go to the Wisdom Coaching page and get a one-on-one session with me totally free. I can't promise to work for free forever, but at the moment I'm very comfortable. I have too much free time, plenty of resources, so this is a win-win for everyone. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and hit the bell if you haven't already, and I hope to hear from you soon. Logos is rising and Ethos is growing. Peace.